What's the process of the LSU jersey coming in?
But I wanted to just kind of pay tribute to the people of Louisiana, and what better way to do it than with the jersey that Jamar wore in the national title game.
But, when I seen him with it on, it was kind of cool seeing that, showing him repping me while I was in my hometown. So, shout out Joe for, doing that. You good? Go ahead.
Where did you have it stored?
On the wall, yeah. I had to take it down just to give it to him.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I am Connor Rogers, joined by Matthew Berry. His name is on the show. Jay Croucher. Boys, welcome back from Philly.
His name is not on the show.
Yeah. Yours is.
I know.
Yeah.
No, thank you for pointing that out, but I just thought it was important to also point out that his name isn't.
Neither is mine.
Connor. No, it isn't either. But it's soon. We're getting there.
Soon?
Sure, absolutely.
All right.
We'll see how the
Big
show
surprise.
goes. Yeah.
Big
100%.
surprise. All right. We heard from Joe Burrow there and Jamar Chase, who had a monster return
game
to Louisiana. I mean, this is what you draft Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow to do.
We thought this would happen. First off, like if you watch Fantasy Football pregame with me and Jay on Sunday morning, we showed the video of when your quarterback walks in wearing your jersey, chances are the ball's coming your way. It's
a good hint.
Certainly it was helped by the fact that the Saints defense gives up a ton of big plays. They didn't have Marshawn Lattimore. It was a bad defense that was hurt by, an injury to their star player. But having said that, yeah, this is good. I don't know that there's much more to say other than the fact that you're always going to continue to start Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. To me, the encouraging thing here, Jay, wasn't that those two guys had monster games, because we knew that was in them, and it was expected, good that they got that done, but that T. Higgins got double-digit targets in this one. I know it doesn't show up in the box score, but after last week, the fact that he was able to play the full game, that he got 10 targets, to me that's like, okay, good. T. Higgins will get his eventually.
Yep, I agree with that. And I also think that another big takeaway is that this Saints defense is not to be feared at the moment. Last year when you saw that defense on the schedule, you were nervous. Right now you're not. Without Marcus Williams, Lattimore, who's been banged up, not ineffective, but not to his same standard, not playing yesterday. I mean, this defense still has DeMario Davis, Marcus Davenport, Cameron Jordan, a guy who goes back and forth with Chris Jones on being the most underrated defensive player in the league, but they just haven't put it together so far this year. I think they will at some point, but for the time being, you can start you guys against the Saints.
Yeah, a tough one for the Saints. Carries down for Joe Mixon, averaging over 19 carries going into this game, only 8.
But actually gets in the end zone
Yep.
and using the passing game a little bit. They didn't need to, right?
No.
But the upcoming schedule for this Bengals team, Falcons, Browns, Panthers, and then a bye. Next 3 games set up beautifully for the Bengals. None of those defenses scare you. Weirdly, I actually think the Falcons might be the
Feisty Falcons. Chase Feisty Falcons.
My Falcons.
Right, yeah, your beloved Falcons. But, weirdly, they're playing decent defense here. I mean, Cleveland just got shredded by Bailey Zappi, right? I mean, Carolina's a disaster. And so, the Falcons have played above expectations, but I don't think you're
the only team in the NFL that's 6-0 against the spread. You remember when you laughed at me and walked off the set when I gave out Falcons plus 1,200 to make the playoffs? Plus 300 now, and they're second favorites in the NFC South.
I still was right. I still was right.
They're not gonna
I've walked
make it.
off the set many times with Jay's comments, and that one I might have been wrong.
He
but
stored
well
them
done.
all in his brain.
Yeah.
Obviously, confidence at an all-time high for Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Let's hear from them on that return to New Orleans.
A lot of great memories. It was from one game, but a lot of great memories of this stadium and a lot of great memories of this culture and these fans, and so it was great to come back and feel that energy again.
It means a lot, actually. Just knowing that, I got the advantage on beating New Orleans. I come back home after the season, talk a little trash. So that's good. That's with my family members. I know they all love the Saints, so it's just good for me to come back home and rub it in their face a little bit.
I like Jamar Chase's answer better right
Yes.
there. He was the second person speaking. Joe Burrow was the first one. Joe Burrow, very classy, it's a special
Quarterback.
memory. Jamar Chase is like, all my friends are Saints fans, and I get to talk trash. Yes, you do. When you walk the walk, you get to talk the talk. Jamar Chase back in as a locked-in #1 wide receiver. He's had 9 or more targets in 5 or 6 games so far this year. You're not worried about it. Your opportunity to buy low on Jamar Chase has now passed.
Yeah, long gone. So while everything was all good for the Bengals and that quarterback-wide receiver connection, it has not been the same in Green Bay. And it did not look any better this week when they were home at Lambeau against the New York Jets.
course.
Sorry, you didn't get the memo.
I got to be honest with you. I didn't think we were going double wide on the Jets jerseys. For those of you listening at home, Jay is wearing Sauce Gardner. His pick for defensive rookie of the year, and you went Keyshawn. Throw you the damn ball.
That's
Absolutely.
right. That's how Elijah Moore's feeling right now.
I was just about to say, you should have worn an Elijah Moore jersey. Throw me the damn ball. They don't need to because Breece Hall is running everywhere. Guys, your Jets, especially Connor, you come by it honestly. You're just a bandwagon. But Connor comes by it honestly. Although I will say, Jay, you have always been on Sauce Gardner.
Yeah, Sauce is my guy, and now he's the favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's into plus 300. We talked about him at plus 1,400 a couple of weeks ago. And look, he's the favorite for a reason. He was incredible yesterday. He got targeted 6 times, gave up 1 completion for 8 yards, and then also had his little moment. I didn't appreciate Alan Lazard coming at my boy. I didn't like that.
100%. Sauce Gardner, again, you walk the walk, you get to talk the talk. He puts on a cheesehead. He's walking through Lambeau, as you see on the video right there, until Alan Lazard comes up and knocks it off his head.
Why don't you catch some passes, Alan, in the game instead?
I was just going to say, I think that's the only defensive stop the Packers made all game.
Let's hear from Sauce on this villain act of wearing the cheesehead at Lambeau. You can see why Jay likes him. Villains like villains.
Yeah. That's true.
Just being able to play against somebody like Aaron Rodgers, that was a true blessing. Like I said, I grew up playing Madden, and he always been on Madden since I can remember. Running off the field with that cheese head thing, cheese on my head, that was a crazy feeling right there. But I'm never going to forget that.
Sauce Gardner feeling real good after yet another game, shooting up the Defensive Rookie of the Year board right now.
Now the clear favorite by himself. And let's just take a minute. We get caught up in everything that happened yesterday. The Jets beat the Packers by 3 scores in Lambeau.
At Lambeau.
They would have been, coming into the season, they would have been 13-point dogs in that game.
I mean, just think about this statement at the beginning of the year. Green Bay will lose to both New York teams.
back to back.
Back to back. You'd have been like, no way. What's the odds? I'll take whatever
what happened
odds
to Aaron
you
Rodgers?
give me.
That's what you would say.
It's super weird. You would think taking Devontae Adams away from this offense wouldn't affect it at all, and yet here it seems it seems like it has on some small level. It's kind of a weird one.
I think with the Jets, here's the thing: their pass defense at the start of the year wasn't great. It wasn't because of Sauce or DJ Reed who have been great all along. It's because of the safety.
Yes.
So I'm still not super confident in him. But now, with the way that Sauce and DJ are playing, with Quinnen Williams is playing like the guy who was drafted 3rd overall, they have a lot of talent on that defense. And then offensively, Breece Hall is out there looking like Jonathan Taylor did last year. And look, I think fantasy-wise, it's kind of bad news for Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore, the fact that the Jets have been a lot better than expected, because Robert Saleh is showing that when they have a lead, and they're going to have more leads than we thought, they're just going to run Breece Hall, and he is the guy on that team now.
18 pass attempts for Zach Wilson, no touchdowns at all. I mean, and by the way, didn't need to. Again, they played very well. They ran the ball. They controlled the clock here, Connor. There's 2 sides to this story, right? There's number one is how serious can we take the Jets? It's a great story. It's unbelievable.
Sure.
If you're a Jets fan like you are, you have to feel very optimistic about the this week.
Jags out, Jets in.
Right. I'm old enough to remember when you were a lifetime Jags fan 2 weeks ago.
They hurt my feelings.
But so you're certainly optimistic about the direction the Jets are heading. But, let's talk about it from a fantasy perspective. And then you also think about, hey, the Packers, what's going on with Green Bay, and can you trust them? Let's start with Green Bay for a second, then we'll get into the Jets, because I think Green Bay is maybe the more interesting story. Part of me wants to write this off a little bit because they're coming off the game from London. Usually teams coming out of that London game get a bye, and they didn't get a bye.
Yep.
Right? They're right back at it, having to play a Red Hot Jets team. The other thing, though, but guys, it just doesn't feel like in sync when the leading target getter on your offense is Robert Tonyan. Something's wrong there for an offense. I don't want to say broken, but it doesn't feel efficient, doesn't feel like it's moving, in synchronicity.
Here's all the problems I saw yesterday. They have a revolving door at right guard that's killing Aaron Rodgers. There's pressure from a D tackle in his face every other play because they have a revolving door at right guard. They took out the starter in Royce Newman, brought in a backup, and he was just as bad. Aaron Jones went to the sideline multiple times looking at his ankle or knee. I think he got something taped up. So there's obviously limitations there. And there is nothing is in sync with these wide receivers at all. Nothing is in sync against a good corner duo, no doubt about that, but they couldn't get anything going, like you said. So the Packers offense, there's layered problems across the board.
Yep, there is. And I just think it will get better. At the same time, Romeo Doubs was targeted 9 times yesterday and had 21 yards off of 9 targets. That's just not good enough. I would be buying low on the Packers in a way just because I think that Aaron Rodgers and that team, there's too much talent there for them to be this bad. But if you're looking at like futures markets for the Packers, like they're not going to win the division now because they're 2 back of Minnesota. They're down the tiebreak against the Vikings too. So they have a very tough path back. And just last thing on the Jets, talked about Robert Saleh at 50-1, coach of the year last week. He's only 25-1 now. 25-1 is still a bet. That is still way too big. I would have him third favorite behind Nick Sirianni and Brian Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still believing in the running backs here. I mean, look, it was nice to see A.J. Dillon get back here. 14 touches in this game. Still didn't get into the end zone. Hasn't scored since week 1, but that's coming. I feel like that's a little bit fluky, but it was nice to see the usage there. Basically an even split with Aaron Jones in terms of the snaps, in terms of the touches as well. Aaron Jones, on the season is still a top 20 fantasy running back. Finished as we ended Monday night, he's running back 26 in this game. As you said, depressed game. He spent some time on the sideline here. I do think there is one guy in the passing attack. The Tonyan game is like, I need to see double-digit targets again before I'm willing to buy into Big Bob Tonyan. But I will say that Allen Lazard has now scored in 4 out of 5 games this year. He's had 4 straight games with at least 13.5 fantasy points. He's wide receiver 16 over that stretch in these last 4 games. 9 targets in this one. He's wide receiver 12 on the week as we head into Monday Night Football. And next up on the schedule, my Washington Commanders. Like if ever there was a team to help you get right, it would be the Washington Commanders defense. Here's the next 4 for the Packers, though. So just to your point about optimism. So they play the Commanders, then they play the Bills, then they play the Lions, then they play the Cowboys. So 2 great matchups, 2 bad matchups, right? And again, we would have thought the Jets was a good matchup, at least a neutral one, and it turned out to be a bad one. So I'm not as optimistic as you are that they turn it around. I don't think you can. I mean, think about Rodgers, right? On a points per game basis, Aaron Rodgers is quarterback 24 this season, guys. He's had under 17 fantasy points in every single game this year. If Aaron Rodgers is your only quarterback, hopefully you've already made a switch, but you can't keep rolling him out there. He's a viable streamer against the Commanders, but that's a far cry from. This is the reigning MVP.
Yeah, where you drafted him.
Well, dudes.
Yep. I think that the offense, it will get better. I don't think it's going to be elite because of just the lack of talent at receiver. But I do think the thing to worry about with the Packers broadly is that their defense is that they just can't stop the run. Like, this is 6 weeks of this now. Every week, someone just destroys them. You're just starting your running back against the Packers every single week because even if they know you're running it every single time, like the Jets were in the second half, like David Montgomery did on Sunday Night Football, they just run it effectively.
And they're not built. The Packers aren't offensively. They're not built to be quick. And, they need to grind out wins. You know what I mean? Because they just, to your point, they don't have the passing game. You've got 12 back there, but they don't have it's not Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes and that kind of offense where it doesn't matter. So as teams are controlling the clock and controlling ball time of possession by being able to run so effectively against them, it's just putting them in these tough situations. And every single team they play in the next 4, my Commanders with should-be comeback player of the year Brian Robinson, right? The Bills and Devin Singletary. You got DeAndre Swift. And then you've got a rejuvenated Ezekiel Elliott, apparently. Last night he looked great. I mean, I don't know. It's, you know what I mean? The only person I'm starting next week with no doubt is Aaron Jones, and I do think Lazard is a viable starter now as well.
I think Davante Adams must be the greatest player in the history of the NFL, honestly. This team was a 1 seed last year. Aaron Rodgers MVP.
Undefeated at home.
Undefeated at home. And now Davante Adams, like the way that we priced lines previously, he would have been worth 2 points to the line. I have to reassess that because apparently without him, the offense just completely breaks.
Elsewhere in the NFC, Geno Smith finally comes back down to earth for a week.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, as we hoped, Kenneth Walker with his big-time performance in his first NFL start.
Yeah, just a massive game. He played 71% of the offensive snaps, 10% target share. He saw 91% of the Seahawks running back touches. As we head into Monday Night Football, he leads all running backs in rush share this week. Just a massive workload for a talented running back. He got an opportunity. He produced. Nothing more to say about Kenneth Walker here. I'm willing to write this one off for Geno Smith. He had 31 pass attempts in this game, which was the second most that he's had so far this year. He's been highly efficient, right, so far this year. As you see it there on your screen, right, 325, 320, 268, and now just 197 and 0 passing touchdowns against the Arizona Cardinals. What we thought was a pretty good matchup here. Felt like they played back a lot, and they were like, we're not going to give up the deep ball here. And so it was a lot of underneath stuff here. His 6.3 yards per attempt in this game was a season low for Geno Smith. He did have 48 rushing yards in this one, though, and, felt like they weren't giving him anything deep. There wasn't anything, so he took off and ran. I have to go back and watch this game play by play. I haven't had a chance to do that yet, but felt like from watching it while I was watching the other games as well that some of it was scrambles. There were a couple of design runs, but for the most part, it was like coverage breaking down and, okay, I got to take off.
Yep. I think that with Kenneth Walker, too, he was better than his stat line, and his stat line was great. He was 21 for 97 on the touchdown. He was better than that. He made 12 guys miss tackles. Just watching him, he looked like an absolute machine. And look, wearing the cheese head and the jet ski, I think Breece Hall is the best offensive rookie. But I think going forward, Kenneth Walker is going to rival Breece Hall. I think that's very close. And if you could trade Breece Hall for Kenneth Walker, get someone to throw in Deontay Johnson or someone like that on top of that, I'd probably make that trade just because I think the Seattle offense, with the tempo that they play at, with their commitment to the run, the Jets are committed to the run as well. I think that Kenneth Walker is just going to be an absolute monster the rest of the way.
We talked about him last week when the Rashad Penny injury happened, that this guy could be a league winner, and nothing we've seen so far changes my opinion on that. I'm still sticking by Geno Smith as a viable low-end QB1. Bad game, bad day at the office. It is what it is. But Chargers, Giants, Cardinals again are the next three for Geno Smith. I'm still sticking with him, and I'm still sticking with, you'd still rather have him than Aaron Rodgers. You'd still rather have him than, Stafford. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there as well. Other side of the ball here, real quickly, I just want to talk about Arizona. This was a very disappointing game. It was it was the second highest over/under in the slate. Obviously, it finishes way under as well. We expect a lot more fireworks. We're here. We didn't get it. I was shocked by the fact that Eno Benjamin got 18 touches in this game. Just massive usage in a great matchup, and just could only muster, 6.5 fantasy points, something like that. Just a bad game for Eno Benjamin. He had 86% of the team's running back touches, 18 for 65, and he caught 3 balls. So whatever, that was 9.5 fantasy points.
That team just seems like it's trending towards disaster. With Marquise Brown as well, we'll see what the prognosis is with the injury, but he's going to be out. DeAndre Hopkins comes back, that helps a little bit, but the fact that they're only able to score 9 points against the Seahawks defense, which, I mean, apparently Tyreek Woolen is great and they have some talent there, but at the same time, everyone was gashing the Seahawks and Arizona couldn't do anything.
No, and now they've got the short week. They play the Saints on Thursday night. DeAndre Hopkins back at practice today for the Cardinals, just in time, especially if Marquise Brown can't turn it around to be there on Thursday night. We'll see if James Conner can play Thursday night. One last thing I want to mention here before we move off this, though. We've been talking about him for a while. 10 targets for Rondale Moore, and especially he plays a very different role in the offense than Hopkins will or Marquise Brown. And so I do think when we do the waiver wire show tomorrow, guys, Rondale Moore will once again be on it because he's not rostered in enough leagues.
We heard after Tua's injury, Tyreek Hill say, I can produce with anybody at quarterback, as he said that to a literally reporter who asked the question. And listen, they're living up to that. Miami's wide receivers are proving they're quarterback proof. Waddle, 6 catches, 129 yards. Tyreek Hill, 12 catches, 177 yards. Skylar Thompson gets hurt in this game. Teddy comes in and plays at a very, very competent level for the Dolphins.
Yeah, he did. I don't know that there's much more to say about this Miami game. Mostert didn't have a great game, but he maintained control of the backfield. He got the majority of the snaps there. I don't think anything's changed about Mostert or Chase Edmonds. Just, when you're throwing as well as you can, there's going to be days like this. I also think Gesicki, huge game here, 6 for 69 in the 2 touchdowns, a 16% 7 target share, which was a season high for him, but still not massive. I guess you have to note it because tight end is such a wasteland, but I think it's worth noting that Durham Smythe was out in this game. This is a guy who has played over 60% of the snaps in 3 of the last 5 games here. I'm not in on Gesicki just yet. Noted, but not necessarily for me. I still think Hill, Waddle, and Mostert are the three guys you want to start from the Dolphins going forward.
Definitely. Now, there are people in this building who work here who won't be named who benched Tyreek Hill this week. And it's just a reminder that if Tyreek Hill is on your team, you start him every single week. It doesn't matter, to his point, who is playing quarterback. He's the favorite to lead the league in receiving yards.
What do you mean? Who?
It was Danielle Cranen. She benched him. Yeah.
Danielle?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, like, how are you, the meanest guy in the show, not mentioning? It's Danielle. Okay, right, Danielle Cranen.
It's
right.
a tough one. Yeah.
Sorry, Danielle.
Yeah,
it is what it is. I don't know why you would bench Tyreek Hill. And you know what? The other thing is I don't know, because you didn't ask me that question, Danielle. You asked Jay. Maybe you asked Jay. I don't know.
No, I didn't get the call up.
You were responsible for this.
I didn't get the call up.
Danielle has, I mean, we were talking yesterday. Danielle told me she's got 5 teams. Like, what are we doing, Danielle? Come on now.
No, it's a tough
Danielle.
one. And Jalen Waddle as well. He's in that class as well. Not to the same extent as Tyreek, but you just start out Jalen Waddle every single week.
Every single week. I mean, yeah. I mean, it should be asked and answered. I mean, it was an interesting game, right? I mean, so Skylar Thompson gets the start, but then Teddy Bridgewater, he gets banged up. And we expect Tua back next week for the Sunday night game. By the way, Dolphins play Steelers Sunday night right here on NBC and Peacock. I'm a company man. Should be really interesting. We think it will be Tua under center going forward, but whatever. It doesn't matter. They're all quarterback proof.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we are back, we are talking weekend warriors from Week 6 in the NFL.
Never take off the cheese head.
From left to right, Mariota looks, now going to loop, and Kyle Pitts caught it, touchdown. On U.S. soil, number 8 has a touchdown.
Give Pitts a chance.
America's nightmare is over.
Yes. All we are asking is give Pitts a chance. I said this on the show. It makes it to the Westwood One radio call, which is what you just heard right there. And guys, we have some champagne. We're in a bar. We have some champagne. As you can see, we have marked out the actual brand because we're still looking for an alcohol sponsor. This could have been you, your logo here, but 2 bottles of champagne, me and you. We're going to open this up. You know why? Because Kyle Pitts has scored his first touchdown in American history. You know what I mean? Like, it's unbelievable.
In American history.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, well, yeah, because he hasn't.
only the London one.
Yeah, no, 1,000%.
Jay, you first.
Cheers.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh, that's my water.
That's the water.
Hang on.
Nope, I lied.
There we go. Burial.
There we go.
Did you think initially, my initial thought was when I saw it, is there another Pitts? Is there another Pitts on Atlanta? It just seems so
Fourth
surreal.
string tight end or a
Yeah.
fullback.
Crew, you guys want any?
Fourth
We're
string
pouring
wide
this out.
receiver. New Pitts.
I'm pouring one out for my
Brad
homies,
Pitts.
and my homies are those people that have stuck by Kyle Pitts through 6 weeks. It's unbelievable.
Couldn't be me.
Pop the corks, pop the champagnes. It's unbelievable. Kyle Pitts, his first touchdown since Week 5 of the 2021 season, his only touchdown as a pro in America, because the one from last year, of course, was London. Still played a season low in offensive snaps in this game. It's still his third game this season.
3 targets.
With 3 or fewer targets. 3 or fewer catches and under 20 receiving yards as well. I don't know if we're drinking to celebrate or drinking to cry our tears, because, I mean, the fact of the matter is that he finished with 10.9 fantasy points. Like, he scored a touchdown. He's a tight end scoring a touchdown, like, you know, and still finished his tight end 11 as we head into Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
I ranked him at 10.
It's like an
so
Irv
kudos to
Smith
me.
type of game.
Yeah, but Arthur Smith, I mean, here's what drives me crazy. And I'm gonna, like, it goes against everything I believe in, and yet they keep winning. So it's like, maybe I'm the idiot, right? You know, like on Reddit, it's like, am I the asshole, right? You know, that's like, there's a Reddit thread. Maybe I'm the asshole here. Like, I don't know. Like, Arthur Smith's like, listen, Barry, like, I'm targeting up Kadero Hodge and, you know, Almighty Zacchaeus and, you know, and we're crushing. So shut the hell up. You know what? Like, I'm out here doing it with Caleb Huntley, dude. Like, I don't want to hear it from you.
Like I said, they're the only team that's covered every game this
I mean,
year. I think the defense is better than anyone thought,
Absolutely.
and that is giving them this avenue to ruin Kyle Pitts, to ruin Drake London,
and still win.
Yeah, to ruin the hearts and souls of Americans. But they're winning games, and until they stop, I think they're just going to keep doing this. So if you're a Kyle Pitts owner, you need to start cheering against the Atlanta Falcons. You need to have them down 3 scores.
But I mean, they've run the ball so effectively.
I know.
That's the thing.
Just
It's like
kills
it's by a committee, and but they actually have, for the most part, like, run fairly effectively this year, and so they're controlling the clock. Like, it's all these kind of grinded out games, but like it's freaking working, and it's annoying as hell. And now listen, 49ers defense was banged up. We talked about this on Fantasy Football Pregame. The really hurt defense that was traveling east for a 1 o'clock game. West Coast team traveling east. But I mean, having said that, this is a team, the Falcons, and Mariota was a big part of this, but 40 rushing attempts for 168 yards in this game.
Yeah.
40 rush attempts for 168 yards in this game. And so if you are the Falcons, why would you change this? I mean, the problem is that as a result, they are still their passing attempts. I mean, Marcus Mariota in a game they won by 2 touchdowns. Marcus Mariota threw the ball 14 times.
Yeah, Marcus Fields is what they call him now.
I mean, basically, right now they had a defensive touchdown in this game, so that skews it as well because they scored and they didn't need an offensive possession to do so. But still, between Kyle Pitts and Drake London, who goes 3 for 40 on 4 targets, like I don't know what to do other than like I don't think you can start Drake London anymore until you can see it. Like, the massive target share that was there has gone away. Yep. And on Pitts, I think you probably still have to keep rolling him out there, but we have to reframe our thinking on Kyle Pitts. He is a touchdown-dependent tight end. Now, a super talented and athletic one, and he's at the higher end of that list, but he is in the touchdown-dependent tight end. Yep. Our producer Damien and I were laughing yesterday because it was just like, oh, Falcons tight end scored. It was Michael Pruitt. Yeah. And then Pitts gets in, but it's like you've got to be effing kidding me. Really? Yep. Finally we got a tight end from Atlanta to score, and it's stupid Michael Pruitt, former Tennessee Titan great, of course, Michael Pruitt.
I do think with Pitts, we do have to regress a little bit back to the talent. He's a different tier, obviously, to the Jamar Chase, but it's the same reason. You're not giving up on Jamar Chase, and he has the big game. Is that, preseason we were talking about Pitts in the same breath as Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. That was a discussion. I just think that the Falcons, my Atlanta Falcons, I just don't think they're this good, and they're going to start losing games. So I would be trying to trade. I would be sending low ball offers for Pitts and London, just because I think the talent is there, and they're going to have to throw the ball eventually.
Maybe. Here's their upcoming schedule, though. At Cincinnati, home to Carolina, home to the Chargers, at Carolina. They're not going to have to throw against the 2 games against the Panthers, right? And so maybe against the Bengals, although the Chargers offense seems a little bit stuck in slow motion. We'll see what they do tonight. Atlanta rushed on 67% of its plays. They're averaging a 36% pass rate over its last 4 games. A 36% pass rate. Like, they don't want to throw. Probably because they've seen Marcus Mariota throw, and they're like, oh, don't do that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, listen,
not the bays, not the throws.
Right, Marcus Mariota was a top 5 quarterback, and I think he's a viable streamer because of the rushing. He had 50 rushing yards. He's had it for 2 straight games. He blew past his prop. We got that one wrong on pregame here. But other than that, I don't know that there's a Falcon you feel good about starting.
No.
There's not one Falcon that you feel good about starting going forward. Quickly before we move off this game, last thing I'll just say here is we predicted a coming out party for George Kittle. It was 8 for 83. He got the 10 targets. He should have actually had 9 for 100 at a touchdown. He was wide open in the end zone for what would have been a 25-yard touchdown pass, and Garoppolo just missed him by a country mile. Drove me crazy as somebody who has a lot of Kittle. And that was my bold prediction on pregame was 100 yards and a touchdown for Kittle, and it was right there. If Garoppolo's a professional NFL quarterback, I'd make my – anyway.
Yeah.
One last thing on this game. Brandon Aiyuk, of course, having a team-high 11 targets, career-high in fantasy points. I mean, a great day for Aiyuk despite an awful day for San Francisco.
Worth noting, I don't know that I'm necessarily starting him, although they play the Chiefs next week, and they're going to have to throw to keep up with KC. The majority of Aiyuk's fantasy success in his career has come when Jimmy Garoppolo has been under center. There is a connection there between those two, so it was nice to see. And again, Kittle coming back as well. They were down in this game, so they had to throw more probably than they wanted to. But I just think the more and more he plays, the more Garoppolo gets back into being competent. You know what I mean? Not a fantasy starter, but to the people that, the Debos and the Kittles and the Aiyuks that we care about. Like, that's what we need.
Yeah, Brandon Aiyuk was Jimmy's favorite red zone target last season. That's going to continue, we think, this season as well. And I'm very worried about the Niners' defense now. Not that they're going to be a bottom 10 unit or anything, but that they're not going to be an elite best in the league unit just because they were missing their entire defensive line yesterday. Yeah. Emmanuel Mosley tore his ACL. He's out for the season. Charvarius Ward, who's been one of the best corners in the league, he's injured now. And Bosa should come back next week, which helps a lot because I think alongside Micah Parsons, he's been the best defensive player in the league. But that defense now is really banged up, and I think that helps Brandon Aiyuk because it means they're going to be throwing more. They're not going to be able to play the defense, run Jeff Wilson game constantly. So I think that I think he's real. He's wide receiver 25 on the season, and I think he can approach that territory.
Really tough game for Jeff Wilson, but again, game script worked against him negatively. And, listen, we've talked about this. The Falcons have a legitimately decent run defense.
Yep.
Jay, you said throwing more. How about the Colts yesterday? Matt Ryan throwing 58 times, and one of the beneficiaries of that is Deon Jackson, targeted 14 times, Matthew Berry.
Let's go. We talked up Deon Jackson on Fantasy Football pregame. I put it out on social as well. People are like, oh, Jackson or Lindsey, and I'm like, Jackson. Jackson's the guy you want. We talked about the fact that he had run twice as many routes as Lindsey in the previous week. He'd been involved in the passing game. He had more targets, more routes run than Philip Lindsey, and really interesting. We'll see if Jonathan Taylor can come back, but, and we'll talk about Deon Jackson more tomorrow during the waiver show, but 14 times he's been targeted the last 2 weeks. I mean, he's averaging over 100 yards a game over the last 2 weeks. He had an 18% target share in this game. That's better than any game that Jonathan Taylor's had. Jonathan Taylor's season best is 14%. Yeah. So to get an 18% target share, I mean, again, we don't expect Matt Ryan to have to throw it 60 times, which is almost what he did in this one.
Yeah, 58,
But yeah, I mean, I think for a Colts offense that looked like it was, dead against the Broncos, this was a good game against my Swagwars.
Yeah, only your Swagwars.
Only my Swag. I know you bailed on that.
Yeah, I bailed.
I'm not a fair weather fan like you.
Yeah, I am. I'm a Jets fan now.
Yeah.
And Falcons. Not Lions anymore either.
Right,
Them
okay.
as well. Look, I think with Deon Jackson, I think now he's a guy that you stash because of Jonathan Taylor. And Jonathan Taylor's had this ankle, which has kept him out 2 weeks. This can linger. If he gets hurt again, I think you definitely want Deon Jackson over like Nyheim Hines because of the ceiling that he showed. And to your point about the Colts offense, I didn't think they had that game in them. I didn't think that Ryan could accumulate that many yards with that efficiency, feeding Michael Pittman. Alec Pierce gets the game-winning touchdown. All of a sudden, Jonathan Taylor comes back. They look like a viable offense again.
Alec Pierce's touchdown kind of saves his fantasy day, but Paris Campbell played more snaps, ran more routes, got more targets, 7 for 57 and 11 targets, scores the touchdown as well. And so I don't know that we have any clarity on the guy other than Michael Pittman that you want in this offense. We thought it might be Pierce. I think after this game, maybe it's Paris Campbell. I think both guys should be rostered in deeper leagues if they aren't already. Paris Campbell is somebody who we loved coming out of college, and just injuries have have derailed his career. They play the Tennessee Titans next week.
Is a favorable matchup. Yeah. I would be selling high on Alec Pierce. I think if someone wants to trade you like George Pickens for Alec Pierce, I'd be saying yes in a heartbeat.
And like you said, we just don't think this team is going to throw the ball 58 times ever again probably this season. So that plays
especially
into
by the
it
way,
as well.
the next 3 games: Titans, Commanders, Patriots, and then Las Vegas. There's not a game until maybe Las Vegas where you think they might get into shootout territory because the Titans, the Commanders, and the Patriots all three are sort of low ball, grinded out kind of time possession type offenses. So none of those games you feel like the game script would be where they're throwing it back and forth the way they did in this game.
Yeah, unless the great Bailey Zappi is still starting and he's making his run to MVP, and that could be a shootout. But if Mac Jones is back, it should be a grinded out.
By the way, it's a question. Bailey Zappi played great. Don't you think? I mean, it's a question. It isn't. Like, it's going to be Mac Jones, but I'm just, like...
It's more of a debate than Cooper Rush, Dak Prescott.
1,000%. I'm just saying, Bailey Zappi's played really well for a 4th-round rookie.
I think now it means there's a shorter leash on Mac, where if Mac is bad for a month, then he's in trouble.
They have a guy that they'll go to right away.
Right, and clearly Zappi's, even when Hoyer comes back, I think Zappi's the backup. Yeah.
A tough day for Baltimore, losing right at the end of the game against the Giants, but a resurgent Kenyon Drake. Very efficient with these touches. 10 rushes, 119 yards, the touchdown, 1 catch for 8 yards. It's the most touches he's had since week 1. I mean, Kenyon Drake in the Baltimore backfield, Barry. Kenyon Drake.
The zombie, like, hey, give me the Undertaker gif of, like,
Yes.
coming up out of the.
He does it every year.
Out of the cabin, out of the not the coffin. I mean, I'm sorry, Undertaker out of the coffin. Like, that's Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake was a healthy scratch at a point this year. Like, he was so bad, and yet J.K. Dobbins gets banged up again, and Kenyon Drake looks nothing short of amazing. The most touches he's had since week 1 when he had 12 at your New York Jets. 2 of the previous 3 games. Again, a healthy scratch. So here's what I would say. I think that the Ravens will be able to effectively run the ball, whoever's back there. I don't feel super confident in saying that's the guy that's going to be back there, because we'll see the extent of Dobbins' injury. His knee tightened up in the second half. Was it just one of those, a game thing and he's fine for next week, or may it linger? Does Gus Edwards come back as well? How does that change the dynamic in the backfield? Kenyon Drake should probably be picked up, but, like, I don't feel great about it because it's Kenyon Drake. And, like, he had a good day at the office. Like, they ran against the Giants. Everyone can run against the Giants. Like, they play Cleveland, then the Buccaneers, then the Saints, then a bye. Normally, I wouldn't feel great about I know the Patriots just ran all over the Browns, but generally speaking, I feel like the Browns are an okay, kind of a middle of the pack run defense. Tampa Bay, in theory, should be a tough matchup here. The Saints have, I don't know. I think it is going to be tough to accurately predict who the Ravens running back you want, because we've seen some Kenyon Drake, we've seen Dobbins. Dobbins was supposed to have limited usage. His first game back, he gets the 2 touchdowns.
I think it's a disaster all across the board. Dobbins is the guy you'd still want because of the upside,
well, of
but
course,
you don't week to week you can't count on any of them. Now, another guy who we'd said you can't count on at all was Allen Robinson, who all of a sudden delivered out of nowhere. A little bit of Undertaker gift for Allen Robinson. He didn't really get the targets that you'd probably like to think it's going to be sustainable going forward. But, Matthew, is Allen Robinson a guy that you're picking up now and starting in your low-end flex territory?
If you've been hanging on Allen Robinson's the guy you start shopping. Like, hey, he's back. Like, I would take almost anything for Allen Robinson. I don't think this is, to your point.
Chase Claypool?
Probably, yeah. Right. But that's he got the 5 receptions, right? It's fine. He got the touchdown. It was a game in which the Rams they're not going to have much easier time than the Carolina Panthers, like a team that fired its head coach and is traveling cross country, and clearly, and they're announcing they're trading their best player. Like, that team is like, okay,
they're lifeless. Huh? They're a lifeless team right now. They kicked Robbie Anderson off the sideline. Like, nothing could be going worse for them, I don't think.
They just got dusted by Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I think with Allen Robinson, the thing too is that, like, he's still not getting any separation. No. He was making ridiculous catches, and that's fine because he's got the leap, he's got the hands, but he's not getting any separation. So I don't think it's sustainable.
I want out of the Allen Robinson business.
Yes,
so if he's available in your league, I'm not making an effort to pick him up there. Better wide receivers. But if you've hung on this tight, now's your window to sell.
In an actual exciting NFL game from Sunday.
They're on a bye next week, by the way.
Chiefs, Bills, Juju Smith-Schuster with a big-time performance, 5 catches, 113 yards, and a touchdown, along with a season-high in offensive snap percentage. Barry, I know you haven't really given up on Juju at any point in this season, but do you think this is a point where he actually starts to get going on a more consistent level here?
I don't. He did this on 5 targets. Like, he had the 142-yard reception, which was great, 5 for 113 and a touchdown overall. Really nice. And if you want to point to something, it was a season high in offensive snap percentage. But, and so he had the second most targets. But this was, again, sort of the box score doesn't look like it, but it was, obviously an intense sort of shootout type game, even though it doesn't seem like that. Here's our upcoming schedule. Niners, bye, Titans, Jags. Again, none of those games you feel like they're going to have to be throwing a ton. Whatever. Mecole Hardman got the touchdown this week. Again, similar to Allen Robinson, really nice game for Juju. If you've been hanging on for so long, I would try to trade off of this game. Juju will have 2 more games like this where he has big games because he's on the field with Patrick Mahomes, and when you're on the field with Mahomes, games like this can happen. But I don't think this is the start of a trend where all of a sudden now he's going to dominate. 5 targets, guys.
Yep, it doesn't seem like it's sustainable. Now, another guy who got more targets, 9 targets, was Chase Claypool yesterday, where, all we've been thinking about, is it Deontay Johnson or George Pickens? Well, it turns out it's Chase Claypool. Are you picking him up, Matthew?
No, I'm not. First off, It's his first game this season with over 50 yards. So he's had one good game in 6. We don't know who the quarterback is. Assuming they go back to Kenny Pickett, who missed the second half of this game. Trubisky came in. Assuming they go back to Kenny Pickett next week in the Sunday night game against the Dolphins, you'd prefer Johnson and Pickens in that order. Right? I mean, so no, I think, listen, very nice, 27% target share. They identified something against Tampa Bay. There's a connection there, but it's one game.
Yep, sorry. So he had 7 targets this week. He had 9 the week before. So that is 16 targets across 2 games. But I think he's still got
to move.
That's what I was going to say. Out with the concussion. This opens up the middle of the field for Claypool. I think that was the difference in this game. If Freiermuth is back soon, it probably takes away that high target share for Claypool.
So, yeah, I mean, 27% target share. I don't think you're seeing that again from Chase Claypool. By the way, I just want to go back very quickly in terms of as we pass by that Colts-Jaguars game. We've talked about this, similar to what we saw with Breece Hall, where like, hey, he's taking over this backfield. I think that's starting to happen with Travis Etienne.
Definitely.
Right? I mean, and James Robinson's still going to get his. Peterson always loves, and you look at the snaps and the touches, like pretty much equal. Etienne played more, but like not significantly more. But just, and I like James Robinson, but Etienne is just so explosive.
That's the difference.
And I think as Doug Peterson, Jaguars are now 2-4. They're better than they were, but 2-4 is 2-4. I think they've got to develop Etienne even more.
Yep.
All right. We're going to take a break. When we are back, looking at some disappointments. The Sunday Scaries coming right up.
Why did you turn to Jay when you said looking at disappointment?
There you go. There you go.
Looking at disappointments.
Coming in Monday hot.
Spin move, had opportunity and just got down, and I knew, once you get the first down, that secures the win.
What are you going to say to those fantasy fans that have you?
Yeah, I know the fantasy fans are going to be a little upset about that, but I got a job to do, and that's to do whatever I can to help my team win a football game. And anytime, you can make a play that can secure a victory, you got to do that.
Sunday Scaries, weekend hangover.
That's Saquon Barkley talking about the knee he took. And by the way, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. Like, we love the production. We would have loved the touchdown. But the most important thing is securing the win, something Nick Chubb did not do early in the season against both of your Jets. Both of you guys, of course, lifelong Jets fans. And by the way, this all started, when Brian Westbrook took a knee, the most famous knee in fantasy football history. We talked about that with him, Connor, on Sunday's fantasy football pregame show.
Absolutely. Let's take a look as Westbrook joined the guys in Philadelphia.
You actually started a trend. While it was frustrating for fantasy managers, we've seen Todd Gurley do it. We've seen Maurice Jones-Drew do it, and Nick Chubb should have done it.
Should have done it. That's
Nick
right.
Chubb should, and that
cost him the game.
100% cost him the game.
In that moment, you've been taught your whole career to score.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And so it's normally you need a brain tap. John Runyon did give me that brain tap before the play. And when I was running down, no one's in front of me. I'm looking back. I see 6'7" John Runyon saying, get down, get down. And that kind of persuades you to do the right thing.
Yeah, John Runyon could tell me do anything, and I would do it.
Factually correct. By the way, that's why I'm hosting this show. John Runyon said, listen, you're leaving ESPN, you're going to NBC, and you're going to host a show. I'm like, yes, sir.
Very interesting, Matthew. You're so on board with Saquon taking that knee when we're playing each other in fantasy this week, and I've got Saquon Barkley on my team. So I think a little bit of subjective bias there.
Factually correct, by the way. And Gallup not showing up last night. I think you're going to ultimately end up winning. I don't know if you heard this, but so it's a 14-team 2-quarterback league that Jay and I are playing in with all the show
I'm
staff.
In it.
Oh, you're in that league?
Yes.
Okay, great. I don't know. It's 14 teams. I wasn't told to learn everyone's names. 14 teams.
I'm Red Rifle's return.
Is that who you are?
I had to stream Andy Dalton one week.
I did not.
Yeah, down in the real depths.
Is that's his name? Red Rifle.
Yeah. His actual nickname. Yeah.
Anyway, so
incredible.
So did you see the freaking transactions? The malfeasance, the skullduggery,
I think I missed
the treason.
this. No.
He basically picked up like every available quarterback on the free agent wire because I have Dak's hurt in that league. And I have Goff as my second QB, and Goff is on a bye. So, I mean, I have Lamar, who had another bad game, didn't have a Lamar-type game. And then And so I luckily somehow found Bailey Zappi, who
He didn't show up.
No, Bailey Zappi showed up. Bailey Zappi had a better game than Lamar Jackson.
He didn't show up for me when I was trying to block you on every quarterback.
I
I got PJ Walker.
Well, I'm saying, what level are we talking about here? To PJ Walker?
Pacheco for PJ Walker.
Yeah, exactly.
Who did nothing. I should have let you pick him up.
You should have. And by the way, because by the way, I would have. I probably would have instead of Bailey Zappi on the road at Cleveland. Ended up working out though, because I think you are going to sneak out with a victory. I had everyone on a bye and hurt and angered, and this is exciting. I didn't know Connor was in the league.
Oh yeah,
now there's somebody else to trade with.
Yeah.
I got 14 people in the league. I don't know.
He's got a lot of Jets on his team. Yeah.
I basically just know you and B. Rubes. That's pretty much it. All right.
I'm going back
by
to
the way,
Connor's cool team.
Speaking of leagues, before we move on to actual conversation, Danielle would like her name cleared. She did, despite benching Tyreek Hill, she still won. She still won. She's upset at Jay for throwing her under the bus, but it's her first. Well, it's her first time watching the show. She doesn't understand that's in character for Jay.
Yes,
he's done on brand.
Jay and Sauce Gardner, villains of the week.
Yes,
he totally
exactly.
is.
Villains of the season.
Cheesehead brothers.
Exactly.
All right, let's move into some of the Sunday Scaries, and who better to start with than Tom Brady, who had a lot of fun at a wedding earlier in the weekend, but it did not carry over into Sunday.
Did you know? I mean, so Brady went to the wedding on Friday night. Like, he was in the Robert Kraft wedding that was in Page 6 and everywhere. Belichick did not.
Yes.
Belichick politely declined. It's football season. I got a game Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, Brady, after the loss to Pittsburgh, said, quote, "I think we're all playing less than what we're capable of, and we've all got to look at ourselves in the mirror and figure out why." I mean, I don't know if that's a reason why, but it's certainly, it doesn't look great, obviously, after a tough loss on the road at Pittsburgh.
Yeah, the Bucs' offensive line is having all kinds of problems, and we know his history has told us as soon as that happens for Tom Brady, obviously he's going to be in trouble here. So it's obviously not just Brady. It's a lot bigger than Brady, but they have a lot to figure out right now. And it's interesting to hear Todd Bowles after the game saying a lot of guys are still living off of that Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, I think one of the most interesting kind of conversations around betting is how do you price in, like, emotional factors? Like, everything that's happening with Tom Brady, the wedding, like, just all the stuff around Tampa Bay has just been bad this year. And for the most part, I say you don't price it in, because I don't think Kobe and Shaq really liked each other that much. They won 3 titles together. I think the bigger problem for Tampa Bay is their offensive line, but it's something you kind of just think about. There's a lot of bad mojo around the Bucs right now.
But this is a team, listen, the Steelers aren't a team that, once TJ Watt went down, could not get pressure.
Yeah.
Like, they really struggled, and yet they had a 25% pressure rate against the Bucs in Week 6. Brady took 2 sacks, but to your point, he was constantly under pressure. We've always said this, like, if there's one flaw in Tom Brady's game, it's that when he's under pressure, like, especially right up the middle, that's the one way to sort of slow him down, and it certainly happened. I'm still starting him. He's going to make the love list next week at Carolina. I don't think he has 2 bad games in a row. But yes, tough day at the office for Brady. Godwin, Evans, big game for Leonard Fournette here.
Barry, you brought up Belichick skipping the Kraft wedding, and that made a hell of a day for Nick Chubb. First game of the year with under 50 fantasy points this season.
Yeah, I mean, like, just bad day at the office, not worried about it as well. He still had the highest running back rush share of the season. He had 75%. I mean, Kareem Hunt was a total no-show in this game, and I think it was just this game got out of hand quickly. You can't stop Bailey Zappi. You can only hope to control him. You can only hope to contain him, right? Shout out to our peacock mate, Dan Patrick. That's his phrase. I think this is just a bad day at the office. Yeah. Honestly, tough defense. Patriots came in. He played well. I'm not worried about it.
I agree. I do think that with Chubb, who is still obviously an elite running back, he's starting Nick Chubb every week. I don't think he's quite his production isn't as resilient as, say, Jonathan Taylor last year or Derrick Henry in the first half of last year, just because game script with Jacoby Brissett and also with Kareem Hunt, who just usually gobbles up his carries. So there will be games like this going forward.
He doesn't have really any passing game usage, and so he's masked that by insane volume and a lot of touchdown equity, which I believe will continue. Just a bad day at the office. But yes, to your point, he is not. The floor isn't as high with Chubb as it may be with some other elite running backs. But make no mistake, he is still an elite running back, both in real life and fantasy.
Yep.
Jay, your Falcons shutting down Jeff Wilson. And this was the most interesting thing about Jeff Wilson is just the decrease in workload from him in this game. We know they have some running backs that are trying to come off the IR and get healthy. What is our outlook on Jeff Wilson these next couple weeks?
Yeah, I just think he's a game script. He's more game script dependent than your elite running backs. I still think that, usually in a game against, say, the Atlanta Falcons, typically you would expect that he's going to have a big game because he's going to be running the ball. But, they played the Chiefs this week. That doesn't look like it's going to be a great game script game. So I still think you're starting Jeff Wilson against the Chiefs. You're feeling very good if he's in your flex, and you could take him as an low-end RB2 probably. But, yeah, I just think that we've seen that, he is dependent on game script. He's not just going to wreak havoc every week.
I think if there's a positive to take away, and there's not much, he also lost a fumble in this game, so just, the numbers just aren't there. As we enter Monday night, he's running back 59.
There you go.
Right? But I think there's a positive here. It's not like Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman, who was great 2 weeks ago, suddenly did something, 4 carries for 3 yards against the Falcons, right? Deebo Samuel got only 2 carries in the backfield. Tyrion Davis-Price was active for this game. He didn't do anything either. So it's not like, we've seen this before with Kyle Shanahan, like, oh, the starter doesn't have a great game, but somebody else stepped up. No one could run against the Falcons. My expectation is that Jeff Wilson is still a starter and get the majority of work against KC in Week 7.
A hot start to the season for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who had 15-plus fantasy points in 3 of those first 4 weeks, but not much cooking lately, Barry. You were kind of on the sell high while you can with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Expect weeks like this going forward.
Yeah, the usage hasn't been there for CEH. It was all, almost 50% of his fantasy points were touchdown related. And so when it's all touchdowns, like, it's one thing if you're James Conner or Derrick Henry and you're getting all this goal line work, but it was sort of fluky here. If there's something to hang your hat on, it's the fact that he got the majority of carries for the Chiefs, but 9. Once again, by the way, hitting the under of 9.5. Like, there's 1 week this entire season in which he went over 9.5 rushing yards. We're 6 weeks into the season, and of course it was the week against Tampa Bay on the road at Tampa Bay when I was on national TV saying take the under. Like, hate CEH. He's currently running back 46 over the last 2 weeks. There was 1 goal line snap in this game. It went to Jerick McKinnon as well.
Yes, it does.
Last 2 weeks, fewer than 7 fantasy points in each one. I said this on Fantasy Football pregame about CEH against the Bills, which was a tough matchup, and I continue to say that there will be games in which a Chiefs running back has a big game. And some weeks it'll be CEH, some weeks it'll be McKinnon, but it feels a little bit like a hot hand here. And yes, your window to get out of CEH at a top 15 price, I think, is closed. He's now like a hope for a touchdown flex.
Yep. It's crazy that on a Patrick Mahomes team, I think Mahomes and Kelsey are the only guys you're really happy with starting, and then Juju and CH you can take as a flex, but you're not super excited about it. Now, Elijah Moore, Connor, your thoughts. What's happening with Elijah Moore? What's happening with all the pass catches in New York?
We're entering drop territory for Elijah Moore. No targets in this game. No receiving, no touchdowns, no catches, no targets in this game. It's pretty simple with Elijah Moore. He's out there. He has route actually decreased in this game. Snaps decreased. He played 30, about 55 offensive snaps. But when he's out there, he doesn't play in the slot, which is his strength. He plays out wide, and he's clearing out space. They try to get Garrett Wilson over the middle of the field, and they try to throw the running backs. There's nothing cooking for Elijah Moore right now, and I haven't seen any reason why that's going to change.
Because they're winning.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's exactly right. Like, in all seriousness, it really should be. He should go on Keyshawn's radio show and just be like,
throw me the damn ball.
Throw me the damn ball. I'm not dropping him in Dynasty, but yes, in redraft, when we get when we do the Welcome to Nunsville Population U tomorrow on Waiver Wire, Elijah Moore will be on it, as will DJ Moore, who struggled once again. It's just a disaster in Carolina.
All right, we're going to break. When we are back, it is time for Last Call. Monday Night Football props coming your way. The action never stops at BetMGM. Sign up now using bonus code BARRY, and your first wager is risk-free. Up to $1,000. Simply download the BetMGM app today or go to BetMGM.com and enter bonus code BARRY to make your first wager risk-free up to $1,000. Matthew Berry will come to your house with a briefcase filled with $1,000.
I absolutely will. Listen, if you want something to root for, I need Albert O to have the game of his life tonight for me to beat. I need like 20 points from him to come back and beat Jay. In terms of these are the most bet props, as you can see some of our friends over at MGM, at BetMGM, promo code Barry, of course. Boy, the KJ Hamler over receiving yards. Russell Wilson has to look at him for him to get that. Boy, I don't love that. Here's mine, guys. I'm taking Melvin Gordon under 73.5 scrimmage yards. Mike Boone played 41% of the snaps last week. I think Latavius Murray will be active in this game and get some work, right? Broncos a 4.5-point underdog. Boone obviously handles the majority of the third down work, at least he did. So, yeah, I'm taking the under here on Melvin Gordon. A lot of his usage last week was because they went to overtime. Yep. I don't expect that against the Chargers.
I'm going to go with the over on Cortland Sutton receptions, which is only at 4.5, something he's easily cleared all season. There's a trust factor there with Russell Wilson and Cortland Sutton. As bad as this passing offense has been, Cortland Sutton is going to be in pretty good shape target-wise. That's a low number as well.
It is a low number. Yeah, I'm taking Mike Williams under 68.5 receiving yards. Now, he's gone well over that the past 2 weeks, but I think that after my man Sauce Gardner, Pat Surtain has an argument to be the second-best cornerback in the NFL. How he shut down Michael Pittman last week. I think he does the same thing to Mike Williams.
I agree. I think it's a Gerald Everett, Josh Palmer, Austin Eckler game for the Chargers.
Doesn't bode great for the Chargers, but I do think that, who do you like? +4.5. Broncos, Chargers.
Chargers, let's ride.
Yeah. All right, let's ride.
Let's bolt.
Chargers country.
Let's bolt. Chargers country. Let's bolt. Let's bolt.
That's bad. Russ.
Russ. Yeah, it's Russ. Chargers need it. Chargers will go for fourth down and they'll get it.
Multiple times.
Listen, you don't have to go home, but you got to get the hell out of here. For Jake Croucher and Connor Rogers, I'm Matthew Berry. Thank you so much for watching Fantasy Football Happy Hour. We're back tomorrow. Good luck on Monday night. Hope your miracle comes through. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.